Maria Ramos never imagined her life would turn upside down with a single letter. It arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, stamped with an unfamiliar seal. As a single mother working 2 jobs, Maria felt a moment of excitement before her heart sank. Her hands trembled when she tore open the envelope. Inside, a formal notice informed her that she had inherited an old gas station from her late uncle, Hector Ramos, whom she had hardly known. Hector had been a quiet man. Few photographs in the family album, no close neighbors came to his funeral. Yet in his will, he left everything he owned: tools, pumps, dusty shelves, and that empty lot on the edge of town to Maria. A strange mix of hope and dread flooded her thoughts. Maria stared at the photograph attached to the letter, peeling. Red paint, a faded sign swinging in the wind, weeds taller than the pumps. Neighbors had always whispered that the place had been useless for years. The local diner owner, Mr. Collins, had once joked that the only thing the station could pump was water, and that not for long. In school, the children called her gas station girl whenever she mentioned her address. Their small town had only a handful of businesses, and this one was notorious for broken lights, closed gates, and the constant smell of stale gasoline. Maria felt her face flush with shame, but she hid it well when her daughter Sophia bounded in. "Mom, look what I drew." Sophia held up a crayon picture of a bright sun over a small building with a chimney. Maria forced a smile. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," she said softly. Inside, she was worried. She already juggled her hours at the grocery store and her night shift at the laundromat. Could she add a crumbling gas station to her life? The letter had one line in bold at the end. She was free to accept or reject the inheritance within 30 days. Maria folded the paper carefully and tucked it into her purse. She couldn't reject it. Hector had sent the letter because he trusted her. She would find a way. That afternoon, Maria drove to the gas station with her 2 children in the back seat. The car bounced on the gravel road. As they drew closer, Sophia and her younger brother Javier pressed their faces against the windows. The station looked sadder than the picture. Rust had claimed the metal pumps. The glass windows were cracked, and layers of dirt streaked the walls. Ivy climbed over the roof, and chairs lay tipped over in the parking lot. A sign reading "Open" hung crookedly, though no one could remember it ever being open. A small apartment above the office held dusty curtains and bare floors, an odd space for Maria's family to live. The first townsperson they met was Mrs. Green, watering flowers at her fence. She gave Maria a pitying look. "You poor thing," she said. "That place is cursed. My brother rented it once and lost everything." Maria nodded politely and kept walking. Worse than pity was the mocking laughter she heard when she turned the pump handle and nothing happened. "Girl, you're going to pay to fill your own car," a man shouted from across the road. Maria clenched her jaw, but said nothing. Her children saw the whispers and giggles. Sophia tugged at her sleeve. "Mom, why are they laughing?" Maria breathed deeply. "They don't know our story," she answered. That evening, Maria called the bank. She would need a loan to fix the pumps, or at least to cover the taxes. The clerk's voice crackled over the phone. A loan? For a gas station business? The clerk paused, perhaps imagining the worst. "We'll need a detailed plan." Maria hung up feeling exhausted. How could she write a plan when she had no idea what she was getting into? Still, she sat at her kitchen table by the dim lamp. Lighton studied the letter again. She wrote down expenses: new pump hoses, paint, insurance. She added costs for her children's school supplies and daycare. Her pen paused over the paper. The numbers soared. But when she looked at her sleeping children, her heart filled with resolve. She could not let ridicule win. Over the next days, Maria cleaned the lot. She hauled away rusted metal and coiled length after length of hose. She scrubbed the office windows until her hands bled. At night, she and Sophia painted the front sign, her daughter humming a cheerful tune. Javier sprayed weeds with soapy water. Word spread that the station's new owner was working herself to the bone. Some neighbors crossed the street to offer water or sandwiches. A few even said quietly, "Good on you, Maria," but the mockery never fully died. The cafe owner asked if she planned to offer free air for the tires so she could attract more thieves. Maria replied with a calm smile, I plan to offer honest service." One afternoon, as she wiped sweat from her brow, Maria remembered her Uncle Hector. She had only one memory, him sitting quietly at the edge of her small backyard, tinkering with a small engine. She remembered feeling safe in his presence, though she could not explain why. She thought about the man so private that even his death had surprised the family. She wished she had asked him about the gas station. Why had he cared for it so long? Why had he left it to her? With renewed determination, Maria climbed into the dusty office and opened the lockbox her uncle had left behind. Inside were faded photographs, a handful of tools, and a small leather-bound notebook. Maria's hands shook as she opened the notebook. Hector's neat handwriting filled the pages with numbers, names, and notes about repairs. She found entries, dating back decades, all meticulously recorded. He had treated this station like his life's work. His notes mentioned local farmers who stopped for fuel, travelers who passed by on dusty roads, and a handful of late-night calls when engines failed. Here was a map of underground pipes, a sketch of an oil tank buried in the yard, and scribbles about an old lease agreement. Maria's eyes widened. What had he been planning? Why was this all hidden? Her heart pounded. The station was more than a broken building. It was a project her uncle had poured his hopes into. Maria realized that if she understood his work, she could finish what he started. Her fear became excitement. She called her friend Mr. Alvarez, a retired mechanic who once trained under Hector. He arrived the next morning carrying a toolbox and offering a gentle smile. "Heard you found Hector's notebook," he said quietly. He loved this place, believed it could be more than a gas station. Together, they studied the sketches and the map. Standing in the early sunlight, Maria felt a strange pride. Around her, the station no longer looked like a burden but a promise. She imagined the pumps flowing smoothly, cars lining up for service, her children growing up safe in the apartment above. The laughter of neighbors faded in her mind as she focused on the pages in her hand. Maria had inherited more than land and gas pumps. She had inherited her uncle's dream and a chance to build something that mattered. As she closed the notebook and looked at the empty lot, Maria whispered, "I won't let you down, Uncle Hector." Duh. And for the first time since she received the letter, she believed her family's future was worth the struggle. ChatGPT said. Maria woke early the next morning, the sky still a soft shade of blue. She climbed the narrow stairs to the apartment above the station, where Sophia and Javier slept under threadbare blankets. The children stirred when she entered. Their small living space? "Good morning," she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from Sophia's forehead. Javier yawned, rubbing his eyes. Maria smiled and told them to get dressed. She heated water for oatmeal on the tiny stove and mixed. In a spoonful of honey, the warm bowl gave them comfort before school. As they ate, Maria thought of the tasks ahead. Outside, the station looked even more forlorn in daylight. The pumps still leaked, and rust ate at the metal. Paint peeled from the sign, and the cracked. Concrete underfoot was slippery with oil stains. Maria sighed but refused to be discouraged. She had borrowed tools from Mr. Alvarez, the retired mechanic. He arrived soon after, wearing a cap and sturdy overalls, carried a toolbox, and greeted Maria with a nod. "Ready to start?" he asked. Maria wiped her palms on her shirt and nodded. "Let's fix what we can," she said. They began with the pumps. Mr. Alvarez showed Maria how to shut off the main valve and unscrew the old hoses. The hoses were stiff and cracked. He demonstrated how to replace them, explaining each step in clear, simple words. Maria listened closely, her fingers learning new movements, while she tightened fittings and checked seals under his watchful eye. Sweat beaded on her brow, but she felt a sense of pride with each pump that stood straight and solid. By midday, 2 of the pumps had fresh hoses. They still did not work, but they looked better. Next, Maria tackled the office windows. She fetched a bucket of warm, soapy water and a soft rag. She knelt on the concrete, scrubbing each pane until the grime lifted. Javier joined her, dipping cloths into the water and wiping the lower windows. Sophia climbed a small ladder to reach the top frames. They worked together, humming a little tune. With each cleaned window, the station seemed to breathe again. Light slipped through clear glass, and Maria felt hope grow inside her chest. A passerby slowed down to watch. He nodded in approval before driving off. Maria's heart lifted. Someone had noticed her effort. After lunch, Maria pulled weeds from the lot. Tall grass wrapped around her boots as she tugged at roots. Javier sprayed soapy water to kill stubborn patches, and Sophia gathered the dead weeds in a plastic bag. The station's perimeter, once hidden by overgrowth, became visible again. Maria stood at the center of the lot, surveying their work. The air smelled of fresh earth and gasoline. It was a strange mix, but to Maria it smelled like possibility. She took a deep breath and smiled at her children. "Good job," she said. They beamed back. That afternoon, a small group of locals stopped by. Mrs. Green from next door brought sandwiches wrapped in wax paper. "You're doing too much," she said, shaking her head. "Let me help." Maria accepted gratefully, handing out plates to her children and Mr. Alvarez. The neighbors lingered, offering kind words and small gifts, an old lamp to light the office, a stack of hand-me-down furniture for the apartment. Maria felt tears in her eyes. She realized she was not alone. The kindness of others reminded her that her uncle's work had touched many lives. As the sun dipped low, Maria reviewed her uncle's notebook again. She and Mr. Alvarez found sketches. That showed the underground tank and mapped the pipes. Hector had written notes about when he had last inspected the tank cover and replaced a faulty gauge. He had even jokestered in the margin about ghosts in the old office. Maria laughed quietly. She felt closer to her uncle with every page. "He cared for this place," she said softly. Mr. Alvarez nodded. "He saw something here," he said. "Something worth saving." That evening, Maria cleaned herself up and dressed for her night shift. She hugged Sophia and Javier tight. "Before leaving, be good," she whispered. They waved as she drove away. The station glowed under streetlights, red letters flickering above the pumps. Maria's thoughts raced. She worried about money. Repairs cost more than she had. But she also felt excitement. 2 pumps looked new. The lot was tidy. Neighbors had shown kindness. And Hector's notebook held secrets yet to be uncovered. On her night shift at the laundromat, Maria folded clothes by the humming machines. The tokens clinked in her pocket as she loaded dryers. She listened to customers chat about sports and weather. When she mentioned the gas station, their eyes widened. "You're brave," one woman told her. "Don't give up," Maria smiled. She folded a towel neatly and tucked her hair back. The encouraging words warmed her. Back at the station before sunrise, Maria inspected the day's work. She tested the pumps against till no flow. But she and Mr. Alvarez had ordered replacement. Parts with luck they would arrive tomorrow. In the meantime, she climbed the ladder to the office window and watched the first light of dawn touch the quiet road. She thought of her children sleeping above, safe and warm. She thought of her uncle's dream, etched in the notebook pages. She thought of the challenges ahead. Her breath came steady and calm. She would face each one. When Sophia and Javier arrived for breakfast, Maria greeted them with pancakes. "You earned it," she said, stacking warm cakes on their plates. The children cheered. Maria poured syrup carefully. As they ate, she shared news of the parts on order and the help from neighbors. Sophia's eyes sparkled. "Mama, you're a hero," she said. Maria laughed. "I'm just a mom," she said. But inside, she felt strong. By the week's end, both pumps had new hoses and working gauges. Maria and Mr. Alvarez tested them under careful watch. A small trickle of gasoline flowed into a container, a sign that bigger changes were coming. They celebrated with cups of cold water, high-fiving each other. Maria recorded the day's work in her own notebook, inspired by Hector's meticulous style, added her own notes, date, tasks, helpers. She wrote a small note of thanks to her uncle in the margin. Word spread that the station had working pumps. A few cars stopped for fuel. Maria greeted each driver with a polite nod and a small price discount for being first customers. The drivers smiled back, many offering kind words. "Nice work. Best prices in town? Keep it up." For the first time, Maria saw a future where her station could bring her family a steady living. The early struggles had cost her sweat and tears, but the small wins brought a deeper reward: belief in herself. Late that evening, Maria closed the station's office door and locked up. She took a moment to stand in the empty lot, looking at the pumps, the sign, and the windows shining clean in the lamplight. The station no longer felt like a mocking echo of failure. It felt like a place of new beginnings. Maria ran her hand over the pump's cool metal. She whispered, "Tomorrow, we do more." And she knew she would. Each small step built something bigger than herself. She was ready. Maria arrived at the station before dawn, carrying a small flashlight and the leather-bound notebook she had found in the lockbox. The sky was still dark, but she felt a warm glow in her chest. Today she would look for more clues about her uncle's work. She unlocked the back door of the office and stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the thin beam of light. She set the notebook on the workbench and ran her fingers over Hector's neat handwriting. Her heart thumped with excitement and a little fear. She did not know what she might find. After breakfast, she called Mr. Alvarez. He arrived in his old pickup truck, with tools rattling in the back. He greeted her with his usual gentle nod. "Ready for more detective work?" he asked, smiling. Maria laughed softly. "Yes," she replied. "Let's see what Uncle Hector left behind." They carried the notebook and maps into the back lot. The ground was still damp from last night's rain. Maria held up the flashlight. Under a pile of broken wood pallets, she saw a square outline. In the earth, it matched the sketch in the notebook. She knelt and brushed away loose soil. A metal ring lay on top of a concrete slab. With Mr. Alvarez's help, she hooked the ring and lifted the slab. A small tunnel opening appeared, damp and cool inside. They shone the flashlight into the hole. Rusted pipes ran along the low ceiling. A heavy metal hatch closed off the far end. Maria's breath caught. "We need gloves," she whispered. Mr. Alvarez nodded. He fetched thick work gloves from his truck. They climbed down carefully, crouching to clear the low entrance. The air smelled of old earth and metal. Maria held the notebook in one hand and the flashlight in the other. She followed the map Hector had drawn, counting the pipes and matching them to his notes. Each scribble made sense. The first bend led to a small valve. The second bend to a wider pipe. They reached the hatch. The journal said it led to the tank room. Mr. Alvarez gripped the hatch wheel and turned. It creaked loudly. The metal door swung inward. Maria shone her light across a small chamber. Old gauges lined the walls. Green glass window offered a view into another room. Through it, she saw a large steel tank, its top just visible. Checked the journal. Hector had written the date of his last inspection 20 years ago. She felt a shiver. 20 years of secrets lay here. She and Mr. Alvarez climbed through the hatch into the tank room. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the floor sloped toward a grated drain. They moved with caution. Maria traced her finger along a pipe marked "fuel in." Another said "fuel out." She whispered, "He still believed this place had use." After they climbed out, Maria and Mr. Alvarez cleaned up around the tank room entrance. They closed the hatch and replaced the concrete slab. The day was bright now, and birds called in the trees beyond the lot. Maria held the notebook to her chest. What else did he hide? She wondered. They carried the maps back to the office. Over lunch, they studied the lease agreement Hector had sketched in the back of the notebook. The paper was yellowed and brittle. Hector's handwriting explained a lease with a prospector named Mr. DuPont, signed in 1972. The lease gave Hector a share of any oil found on the property for 50 years. Maria did the math in her head. 50 years meant the lease would end next year. If there was oil, she had only a short time to act. Her mind raced. She would need to confirm that the lease was valid and enforceable. "Can we trust this?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Your uncle was careful. He had a lawyer witness the lease. If those records still exist, you can prove it." Maria felt hope and worry in equal measure. She would have to visit the county records office. She would need money for surveyors and lawyers. Her heart pounded with the thought of new expenses. But without proof, her efforts at the station would be just work. With proof, her obstacles could turn into opportunity. That afternoon, Maria drove to the county courthouse. The building was old, with tall columns and a heavy wooden door. She stepped inside and joined a line of people waiting at the records counter. The clerk took her papers and nodded. "You're looking for records on Hector Ramos's lease?" she asked. "Yes," Maria replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The clerk disappeared into an inner room. After a few minutes, she returned with a thick folder. Inside were copies of the original lease, stamped and signed, and a follow-up document extending the lease in 1977. Maria's hands shook as she read. The signatures matched those in the notebook her uncle had protected. His rights well, she thanked the clerk and left with the folder. Back at the station, Maria shared the news with Mr. Alvarez. They examined the folder together. "This is real," Maria said. "We have the dates, the signatures, even the notary stamp." She felt tears prick her eyes. He did all this for us. Mr. Alvarez patted her shoulder. "Now we have to prove there is oil," he said. And Maria nodded. She opened her phone and looked up numbers for geological survey firms. She found one in a nearby city that offered affordable rates. She sent an email requesting a site visit. She held her breath as she hit send. The reply came within an hour. They could schedule a visit next week. Maria breathed out, relief flooding her. She had the lease, the maps, and a plan. She would pay the deposit for the survey with her savings. It was a risk, but she knew her uncle would have taken it. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Maria lit a small lamp in the office. She and her children sat around a wooden table and shared a simple dinner of soup and bread. Sofia and Javier asked about the metal hatch they had barely glimpsed. Maria told them stories of their grandfather Hector, a man who loved machines and maps. She spoke softly, wanting them to understand that their family had roots in this station. When they finished eating, Sofia hugged her tightly. "Mama, I'm proud of you," she said. Maria smiled through tears. "I'm proud of us," she answered. Before bed, Maria returned to the notebook. She found a final note at the back. "To Maria, may you see what I saw." She ran her finger over the words. She closed the notebook and placed it on the shelf beside the maps. Tomorrow would bring the surveyors, and soon she would know if oil lay beneath the soil. She turned off the lamp and climbed the stairs to her apartment. Her children were asleep, and the room felt calm. She lay in bed, her mind racing with dreams of black gold beneath the ground. She thought of the mockery she had faced, the long hours of work, and the small triumphs she had earned. Tonight she allowed herself hope. Dawn the next day, Maria walked outside to the station. She looked at the pumps, now clean and ready for business. The sign above the office swung quietly in the morning breeze. She touched the cold metal of the hatch cover and thought of the journey ahead. She felt a steady confidence rising inside her. She whispered to the empty lot, "Soon we will know." And with that promise, Maria turned toward the road, ready to meet whatever came next. Maria woke early with a sense of purpose. Today the surveyors would arrive to test the ground beneath her uncle's old gas station. She brewed coffee in the small kitchen and prepared a quick breakfast of toast and jam for her children. Sofia and Javier sat at the little wooden table, rubbing sleep from their eyes. "Big day today," Maria said, smiling as she handed them their plates. "Yes," Sofia replied, her voice bright. Javier nodded, crunching into his toast. Maria felt a warm pride watching them. After the children left for school, Maria hurried to the station. She swept the concrete under the pumps, tied back her hair, and checked her notebook. The surveyors from Greenfield Geotech were due at 9. She set out 2 folding chairs near the office door and laid out bottles of water. At exactly 9. A white truck pulled up. 2 men in green uniforms stepped out, carrying clipboards and a portable drilling rig. They introduced themselves as Tom and Rita. Maria greeted them with a firm handshake. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I'm Maria Ramos. My uncle Hector owned this place, and I'm hoping to find what he believed was here." Tom smiled kindly. "We'll do our best. Let's start with some soil samples." He and Rita unpacked small, sharp tools and labeled plastic bags. They asked Maria to show them the maps from her uncle's notebook. She led them to the office and carefully unfolded the yellowed pages. The maps marked 3 spots, one near Pump 3, one behind the office, and one beside an old oak tree at the lot's edge. Maria watched as Rita studied the map, tapping her pencil on the page. "These spots make sense," Rita said. "We'll drill shallow cores here first, then decide if deeper tests are needed." Maria nodded, her heart pounding with both excitement and nerves. Outside, Tom drove metal pipes into the ground. Each pipe hissed as it met the soil. Maria held her breath. She imagined black oil seeping through the earth like a hidden promise, waiting to be kept. Rita collected soil in small jars, checking color and texture. Clay and sand layers, she noted. It's nothing unusual yet. Maria tried not to worry. She reminded herself that this was only the first step. The real test would be deeper drilling. By noon, they finished the first round of samples. Maria invited them into the office for sandwiches and lemonade she had prepared. As they sat at the folding chairs, Tom explained their next move. "We need to rent the drilling rig for 2 days," he said. "Then we can go down about 100 feet. Maria blinked. "Is that safe?" she asked. Tom nodded. "We'll stabilize the rig and work slowly. It'll cost a bit more, but it's the only way to know." Maria held her breath. She had budgeted most of her savings for this survey. She closed her eyes and thought of her children and her uncle's work. She agreed, "Do it." When the surveyors left to fetch the rig, Maria called her accountant to arrange the payment. She wrote a check from her savings and handed it over. Her hands trembled as she signed her name, Maria Ramos. She felt a flutter of fear. What if there was no oil? But she pushed the thought away. She had seen her uncle's maps and the valid lease. She believed in him. The next morning, the drilling rig stood tall beside Pump 3. Maria watched as workers attached heavy pipes and turned the motor on. A deep rumble filled the air. She stood back, shielding her ears. The drill bit spun, pounding into the ground. Dirt and dust flew around. Maria wore a mask to keep her breath steady. She held the notebook in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. Hours passed. The rig slowed, then stopped. Tom climbed down and shouted, "Core sample coming up." He and Rita examined a long cylinder of soil and rock. Maria leaned in. The sample showed dark streaks on the edges. Rita's eyebrows rose. "There's bitumen here," she said softly. "It's a crude form of oil." Maria's heart pounded. Tears sprang to her eyes. "Really?" she whispered. Tom nodded. "We'll need one more sample to confirm, but this is promising." Maria felt a surge of joy and relief. She remembered the mocking laughter she had faced not so long ago. Now she held proof that her uncle's belief was real. She shared water with the drilling crew and thanked them. The rig moved next to the oak tree for the second test. Maria followed, holding her breath each time the drill bit into the ground. The second sample looked the same. Dark streaks of bitumen. Rita checked her notes and said, "Good news. Got a small deposit here." Maria squeezed her hands into fists, tears blurring her vision. She steadied herself against the rig. After the tests, the workers cleaned up. The rig rolled away, leaving neat holes filled with gravel. Tom and Rita packed their bags. Maria led them into the office for coffee and homemade cookies. As they sipped, they explained what would happen next. "You have enough to talk to Ann?" "Energy company," Tom said. "They can handle extraction and tell you what royalties you'll receive." Maria nodded, thinking of lawyers, contracts, money, and responsibilities. She felt both excited and overwhelmed. She thanked them deeply. Rita shook her hand and said, "You've done great work here. Best of luck." That afternoon, Maria drove to the energy company's local office. The building was modern, all glass and steel. She waited in a polished lobby until a woman named Ms. Carter came to greet her. Maria showed her the survey report, the lease documents, and the samples. Ms. Carter examined each with professional interest. She asked questions about the station's history, the lease expiration date, and Maria's plans. Maria answered honestly. After an hour, Ms. Carter said, "We'd like to make you an offer. We'll handle all drilling, extraction, and environmental permits. You'll receive a 20% royalty on the oil produced." Maria processed the information. A steady income for her family, plus enough to finish renovations on the station. It felt like a dream. Ms. Carter handed Maria a preliminary contract. Maria read it line by line, her eyes scanning every word. When she finished, she looked up. "This looks fair," she said softly. "You want to make sure my children are safe. And the community is protected." Ms. Carter smiled. "We agree. We'll work with you to ensure minimal disturbance and help with community projects." Maria nodded, relief flooding her. She signed the contract. The pen felt heavy in her hand, but her heart felt light. Back at the station, Maria taped a simple announcement on the office window. "Oil rights licensed. Pump repairs continue. Thank you for your patience." Neighbors gathered to read it. Some clapped. Others smiled. Mr. Collins from the cafe brought fresh coffee and muffins. "Looks like you proved them wrong," he said. Maria laughed, handing him a muffin. "We proved Hector right," she said. As the weeks passed, workers arrived to start drilling and prepare permits. Maria balanced meeting with the crews, running the station, and caring for her children. She found new strength in her routine. The pumps worked, customers returned, and Sofia and Javier made new friends at school. Some neighbors stopped by to volunteer, painting the station's exterior in bright colors and planting flowers around the lot. Maria watched as her uncle's old project transformed into a community hub. One evening, Maria sat on the station's small porch, the orange sun sinking behind the hills. She held her uncle's leather notebook on her lap. The pages had notes, and dreams, sketched maps, and reminders of hard work. Maria ran her fingers over the words he wrote to her. "To Maria, may you see what I saw." She smiled through tears. She had seen it all. The promise beneath the ground, the community's care, and her own courage. Maria closed the notebook and looked at the station lights glowing softly in dusk. She thought of her children, safe above the office, their laughter filling the apartment. She thought of her Uncle Hector, who had believed in that land long before she did. She thought of the mocking voices that once called her gas station girl. Tonight, those voices were silent. In their place stood respect, community, and a sense of belonging. And as the first stars appeared in the sky, Maria whispered to the quiet station, "Thank you, Uncle. We did it." She knew the hardest work was still ahead, but she also knew she was not alone. The station no longer mocked her. It mirrored her strength. And beneath its surface lay not just oil, but a legacy of hope and perseverance that would last for generations. Maria woke before sunrise, her body warmed by the memory of last night's soft breeze on the porch. She dressed quietly, careful not to wake Sofia and Javier. Today felt different, like the final step in a long journey. She brewed coffee and packed lunches for her children. On the way to school, she drove past the station. The new pumps stood bright and shining. Fresh flowers lined the lot. Soft glow of lamps lit the freshly painted walls. Maria felt a smile spread across her face. After dropping the children off, she returned to the station. The drilling crew had finished their work a week ago. Now rigs and heavy trucks moved in and out, carrying samples and equipment. Maria greeted each worker warmly. She felt proud of how smoothly everything ran. The energy company's team was polite and efficient. They cleaned up after themselves and made sure the lot stayed neat. Maria nodded as she reviewed progress reports and royalty estimates. The numbers were clear. Their earnings would help her family and her community for years to come. Mid-morning, a small crowd gathered by the station doors. Word had spread that the first royalty payment was arriving today. Maria had invited neighbors to share the news. She stepped outside, holding an envelope from the energy company. The air smelled of fresh paint and gasoline. Children ran around playing tag. A few local farmers leaned on their trucks, sipping cold drinks. Maria felt her heart beat with excitement. She cleared her throat. "Thank you all for your support," she began. Her voice trembled a little but grew stronger as she spoke. "I first inherited this station. I faced doubt and ridicule. Many said it was worthless. But together, we cleaned these pumps, fixed these windows, and uncovered a secret my uncle believed in. Today, I'm proud to share that our first payment has come. She opened the envelope and held up the check. The amount was more than she had ever seen in her bank account. A cheer rose from the crowd. Neighbors clapped and hugged her. Mrs. Green wiped tears from her eyes. "You did it, Maria," she said. Mr. Collins from the cafe shook her hand. "I've never been more proud to live in this town." Joseph, a local mechanic who often helped with minor repairs, offered a high five. "Now we have work to do more. Improvements," he joked. Laughter echoed across the lot. Maria laughed too, feeling warmth spread through her chest. After the celebration, Maria walked into the office. She placed the check on her wooden desk beside Hector's notebook. She opened a ledger and wrote the date, the amount, and notes for her accountant. She booked a portion of the money for family expenses, school fees, new clothes, and savings. Another portion she set aside to pay off the loan for the station repairs. The rest she marked for community projects. Memories of her uncle's kindness filled her mind. He loved helping neighbors. She wanted to honor that legacy. Over the next days, Maria worked with the town council to fund improvements. A playground swing set for the park, new benches outside the library, and fresh coats of paint for the community center. She negotiated volunteer days where station employees would help with cleanups and gardening. She watched children swing happily under the oak tree where she had found the first drill site. Their laughter became her reward. At home, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Her apartment above the station grew cozy with new furniture and colorful curtains donated by neighbors. Sophia and Javier studied at the small kitchen table, their homework spread out beside mugs of hot cocoa. They waved goodbye to Maria each morning as she headed down the stairs to open the station. When evening came, the family shared dinner in the office break room, now turned into a warm dining nook. The walls held photos of the station's transformation before and after, pictures, the first core samples, and snapshots of community events. One weekend afternoon, Maria found a surprise waiting at the station. On the office steps stood an easel with a framed portrait of Hector. His kind eyes and gentle smile looked down on the pumps he had loved. A plaque read, "In memory of Hector Ramos, whose vision and care built more than a station, he built community." Maria's breath caught. She remembered his notebook entry. "To Maria, may you see what I saw?" Tears filled her eyes. She touched the frame and whispered, "We did it, Uncle." That afternoon she called her children over. "Look," she said, showing them the portrait. "This is your grandfather." Sophia ran her finger over the plaque. "He looks brave," she said. Javier nodded. "I wish we had met him." Maria knelt beside them. "He was brave and he loved this place. He believed a small station could help a big community. Now it does." Children hugged her tight. Maria felt her heart swell. The summer turned to fall. The station's reputation grew. Travelers on the highway pulled in, not just for fuel, but for the friendly service and fresh coffee at the little cafe stand, Maria added. The station offered local crafts in a small corner shop, honey from Mrs. Green's bees, pottery from local artists, and baked goods from the cafe. It became a gathering place for the town and a rest stop for visitors. Maria's story spread, and journalists wrote articles about the single mom who found gold beneath a gas station. Despite the attention, Maria stayed humble, remembered the early days of mockery and struggle. She reached out to encourage others facing doubt. She spoke at women's groups and local schools, telling her story in simple words. "If someone does not believe in your dream, believe in it harder," she told them. "Work every day, ask for help, and keep going." Her words resonated, and many found new courage. One chilly morning, Maria walked into the lot just as the sun rose. Steam drifted from the ground as frost melted on the concrete. She rapped, her coat tight, and breathed in the cold air. The station looked peaceful, its pumps resting until customers arrived. She thought of her uncle's old tools piled in a corner, her children's laughter echoing in the office, of neighbors' kindness, and of the secret tank buried beneath their feet. She felt deep gratitude for every person who had helped. Maria opened the office door and sat at her desk. She reached for Hector's notebook and flipped to the first page. His neat handwriting welcomed her. She wrote a new entry beneath his final note. "To Maria, may you see what I saw?" In her own careful script, she added, "Thank you for showing me the way. Our story lives on." She closed the notebook and leaned back. The station lights flickered on as the first customers arrived. She stood, smoothed her coat, and greeted a driver pulling up to pump 2. As she handed over the nozzle and set the price, a sudden thought warmed her heart. The station had never truly been about gas or oil. It had been about belief, community, and family. Her uncle's vision had sparked a journey that changed many lives. Maria smiled at the driver and offered a warm thanks. He returned her smile, paid, and drove off. She watched him leave, knowing her uncle would be proud. The morning light danced on the fresh paint and the bright flowers. Maria inhaled deeply. Ready for another day, she knew challenges would come again. More repairs, new regulations, maybe another threat to her lease. But she also knew she had the strength, the community, and her uncle's spirit guiding her. The station no longer held mockery. It stood as proof of dreams fulfilled. And as the sun rose higher, Maria whispered softly to the empty lot, "Our story continues." She turned to greet the next customer, her heart steady and hopeful. Ready to write new chapters in the life of the old gas station that turned into a treasure worth millions in more ways than one.